It's time for Morton in the Morning on WVBF, a weekly get-together with your friends at Morton Hospital. Coming to you every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m., Morton in the Morning brings you full access to the latest hospital news and health information. Stay in the know about important health and wellness topics, new doctors and services, and upcoming events. And get to know the team at your community hospital. And now, Morton in the Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to another new episode of Morton in the Morning, coming to you right here from Morton Hospital, your community hospital in Taunton. It's March, which hopefully means that the warmer weather and spring are going to be here before we know it, which is very exciting. We have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, just a reminder that we come to you every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m., right here on WVBF, your hometown radio station. And you can always reach out to us at any time if there are topics that you'd like to hear about on one of our upcoming shows. We have a special email address set up for our show, which is mortoninthemorning@steward.org. That's MORTON in the morning at STEWARD.org. You can reach out at any time. We would love to hear from our listeners. Again, if you have ideas for future shows, any health and wellness topics, or doctors that you'd like to have us try to get on our show in the future, or if you just have any general feedback or questions, please reach out to us at any time. We'd be happy to hear from you and hear how we're doing in our listeners' eyes. So let's get started with today's show. We have been interviewing over the past few weeks some of the staff in our outpatient areas, and we wanted to continue on that trend and interview another special guest from one of our off-site departments affiliated with Morton Hospital. So our special guest for today is Oscar Miranda, who is, I'll let him explain a little bit about his title, but he is part of our occupational therapy team at our Northwoods Outpatient Rehabilitation Services site up on Bay Street. Oscar, we are so happy to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so you mentioned right before this, you have some credentials after your name. Can you explain what those are and what that means?
Sure. It's OTR/L. Stands for Occupational Therapist, Registered and Licensed.
Excellent. Okay, well that's important. Sounds pretty official. So tell us a bit about yourself, maybe your background, how long you've been at Morton, and how you came to be part of the Morton team.
Okay, well, 54 years old. I'm oldest of four. I was born in Athens, Georgia.
Nice.
My dad was in the military, so I was obviously a military dependent, moving up and down the East Coast. I graduated from Rogers High School in Newport, and then after that went to the University of New England in Biddeford, Maine, where I studied occupational therapy. I graduated in 1989. Mm-hmm. I enjoy surfing, snowboarding, camping, hiking, pretty much anything outdoors.
Awesome.
My first job was in Dallas, Texas. Got most of my experience as an undergrad or new grad there, and worked there for 2 years, and then Morton has been my second job. So I've started here in 1991.
Wow.
And I've been here ever since. So I'm thinking either 30 years or coming up on 30 years.
Yeah, 30 or maybe even 31 almost, depending on when you started. That is awesome. We have so much longevity here. That's amazing. And, the fact that you want to stay with us for so long must mean you really love your job.
I do. I love my job.
It sounds like you've been all over the place, actually. Georgia, Texas, Rhode Island, Massachusetts.
Pretty much every state on the East Coast with the exception of Delaware and New York.
Wow, okay. And so Massachusetts is your favorite then, right? So you've been at Morton for about 30-something years. Mm-hmm. So you are at our rehab center up on at Northwoods on Bay Street, which many people are familiar with. We have physical therapy. We also have occupational therapy. So tell me about, because you're an occupational therapist,
Correct.
Tell me what occupational therapy is.
Well, OT, or occupational therapy, focuses or aims to help people complete the function of everyday life.
Okay.
Okay. However, when you say occupation, it's not just your chosen career.
Right.
And a lot of people think, occupational therapy, oh, can you help me find a job?
Oh, gee.
and that is actually not one of my
Okay, that's a new one. I never heard that before.
Right. But an occupation, when the term occupation is any activity performed by an individual. What I mean by that is any activity that occupies your day.
Okay.
In school, we were taught it's draw a pie, and you can break it up into 3 different parts: self-care, work or school, and leisure activities.
Okay.
So when someone's injured or hurt, at least one or more may be affected.
Okay.
And as OTs, our goal is to maximize their function to enable them to return to those activities as independently as possible.
Okay. So it could be anything, day-to-day stuff like, preparing dinner or little things like that. Just things that you need to do to get through your day, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how does OT differ from PT, physical therapy? Because I know oftentimes you think of PT after an injury because that's really helping to rehabilitate the injury, but it sounds like it's much different actually.
And it is. This is a difficult question because that's probably one of the biggest questions as an OT that we field. So the most basic difference, I would say, between PT and OT is that PT focuses on the larger muscle groups and the patient's ability to move their body.
Okay.
Whereas OT focuses on the smaller muscle groups and fine motor function to help improve, adapt, or modify the patient's ability to perform self-care, work, or leisure activities.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense then. And so what specifically about OT, interested you? Why did you want to get into this field?
Well, growing up, my mother was a nurse, and I was always interested in, obviously not the names, but the stories she would tell me about different patients that she had. So that piqued my interest as far as the medical field. Luckily, because she was a nurse at Newport Hospital, I was able to shadow physical and occupational therapists there. And in most cases, PT and OT complement each other. They work together to optimize the patient's level of independence after an injury.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Do you work collaboratively, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, so you can do individual treatments like an OT treatment, OT and PT, and a lot of times because of the nature of their injury or the complexity of the particular patient's diagnosis, they might work together.
Okay.
So
you did some shadowing at Newport.
Right, so I did some shadowing, and then after learning more about the curriculum for OTs, they had a strong psych component.
Okay.
And I found that to be most interesting because you're not only dealing with the person, you're dealing with the person as a whole.
Yeah.
So they might have a broken wrist, and say if they're a truck driver, now they're wondering, I'm the breadwinner. Am I going to be able to get back to work?
Yeah.
Or are we going to lose our house because, or it could be something as more, a little more severe, like a spinal cord injury.
Yeah.
And, the psych components of, will I ever work again? Are we going to have to modify the house? Will my wife leave me because I can't walk anymore? Will my friends still go to the game game with me because I'm in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
So you deal with.
Oh, that's interesting. So you had to do, in school, you had to do some psych classes.
Yeah,
okay.
Like heavy on the more sciences and psychs.
Okay.
And the PTs had a lot of the sciences. They took some psych classes, but science and math.
I definitely want to talk to you a bit more about how you incorporate that training into your plans with your patients and how that's incorporated into your everyday interactions when you're treating with your patients. But before we get into that and talk a little bit more about the psych component of OT, it is time for our first break of today's show. If you're just joining us, we are sitting here with Oscar Miranda of our occupational therapy team within our Northwoods Medical Center Outpatient Rehabilitation Services Department. And we are learning all about occupational therapy, and we have a lot more to come with Oscar, but stick around. We'll be right back after these short messages in our first commercial break.
We'll be back with more of Morton in the Morning in just a few moments here at WVBF.
Morton Hospital's nationally accredited Center for Weight Control has grown with the addition of Dr. Deepthi De Silva, our new Director of Medical Weight Loss Management. Our center now offers high-quality medical and surgical weight loss options close to home, with medical weight loss appointments now available in Taunton and Middleborough. To learn if you qualify for weight loss surgery or medical weight loss and to schedule a consultation, call our Center for Weight Control at 508-301-2434.
And now back to Morton in the Morning here at WVBF, Hometown Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of Morton in the Morning. We have a new show for you this week. If you're just joining, we have been chatting with Oscar Miranda of our occupational therapy team, which is part of our Outpatient Rehabilitation Services Department up at Northwoods Medical Center right on Bay Street. If you've been driving up Bay Street lately, you will see a big sign with our logo that says all of our lists, all of our outpatient services there, one of which is our Rehab Services Department. So we've been chatting a lot with Oscar about what exactly occupational therapy is. And before we took a break, he was talking a little bit about how, as an occupational therapist, as opposed to physical therapy, the schooling and education that is required, there's a psych component in working with the patients, because a lot of, the occupational therapy related injuries or ailments, have to do with a patient or might impact their daily activities. So Oscar had to learn a lot about the mental health component and how to incorporate that into his treatment with his patients to help them get through some of the challenges that they are met with, when they're going through treatment. So we're talking about the psych component. How is that actually incorporated into your working with the patients? Is it, like being, motivational with them? Is it trying to help them figure things out?
Yeah, so it's a combination of all of those.
Yeah.
So when we're treating, obviously you're establishing a rapport with them. Mm-hmm. They're clearly at their lowest level after an injury, and you're trying to get to know them, and you have the small idle chit-chat kind of things, just getting to know them, and some people are slow to open up, but a lot of times they do, and you talk about where they grew up, what they had as different jobs, how long they've been doing their jobs, how it's actually impacted their life being out of work. And that's just a person who was working. I mean, there could be something as different as being a 5-year-old with a fractured wrist, and now she can't play with her friends because she has a cast on her wrist. So, and how that makes her feel because she doesn't feel part of. So you really get a chance to, help them process things and keep things focused, going in the right direction.
Yeah, and it sounds like the more that you get to know about your patients, the better you're able to maybe tailor their treatment or give them recommendations. And,
Correct.
For within the home. That's really interesting. I actually never knew that about the psych component. So I want to talk a little bit more about the types of patients you treat, because I know we're focused on injuries, but my understanding, and maybe I'm incorrect, but you also work with a lot of stroke patients. Is that correct? I know I actually had a grandfather who had a stroke, and I remember that he had occupational therapy, and he would have different devices that he could work with to help him, with grasping things or, reaching things. So tell me a little bit about the range of patients that you are able to treat, if it's more than just patients with injuries. Well,
I mean, so it all depends on OTs. Has a strong psych background. Yeah. That's actually in mental health was where it originated. A lot of vets that came back, things like that. So, but we see patients of all ages with a multitude of varying injuries. Like I had alluded to, it could go from a 5-year-old girl with a wrist fracture to an athlete after an injury or surgery, to a truck driver after a rotator cuff tear, to an 80-year-old man or woman after a stroke.
Yeah, okay, all right. So stroke is a big part of it then. Okay. Now, what about, I was talking with Deb, who is the manager up there.
Correct.
And she said some of her team members have very specific areas that they are experts in. So tell me about your specific areas of expertise.
So when I went to Texas, I really immersed myself in just about everything that you could.
Okay.
Because I was advised as a new grad that don't focus or specialize right out of school.
Yeah.
Because then if you get burnt out in that, that's all you know.
Yeah.
So I was able to see a lot of different things, from the spinal cord team to the head injury team to the burn unit to the orthopedic floor, the neuro floor with head injuries and stroke patients. My specific interest or expertise, if you will, is anything and everything that pretty much can happen from the shoulder to the fingertip.
Okay.
More specifically, the hand.
Okay.
So, in my experience, early on, I was able to see that something as simple as just fracturing your index finger, your life changes dramatically.
Yeah.
So, from tying your shoes to cutting food, opening a jar, it changes.
Wow.
And especially if it's your dominant hand.
Absolutely.
So, so my specific my specific interest is anything really involving the hand. So tendon lacerations, I have patients with amputations that are put back on, so those are replants, fractures, burns, so anything, just the hand. People take it for granted. We go in our life every day taking things for granted until you don't have it anymore.
I know. I was just thinking that. I mean, you don't really think about it. Like, it's something, or even if it were like a toe or something, that could definitely impact things like your balance and everything else. But the hands, I mean, you don't realize how much you do with your hands. I mean, I'm here, and I do a lot of typing at work, and I don't know how I would have to adapt to typing or learn to type a different way. I guess it sounds like people might have to learn to just do things differently.
And another sort of area of expertise is the fabrication and customization of dynamic splints, static splints that might protect the injury, or any type of splints to help improve or enable the patient to function again.
So how does that work? I mean, do you make them? Do you design them?
Right. Well,
all of the above?
Right.
Really? Okay, so that's so interesting, because I always thought that those are made like in the doctor's office, but when they come to see you, you can actually make someone a splint.
Right.
Okay.
It's out of a low temperature thermoplastic.
Cool.
And so maybe post-operatively the doctor will put on, say, a cast or a protective splint.
Yep.
Then when I see them in the clinic, I'll take that off, change the dressing, and then make a lighter weight. It's cooler, it's more durable, it's easier for the patient to take on, don and doff, or put on and take off. So one example would be a patient that I had who had a biceps repair, and they had to pull the nerve out of the way just to do the surgery.
Oh, wow.
Well, with the traction on that nerve for the extent of time that it was required to fix the biceps, he ended up having what they call radial nerve palsy, which means so the radial nerve goes to the extensors of the wrist and the fingers, so he could squeeze, but he couldn't extend his hand.
Oh, wow.
And he couldn't lift his hand up. So I made a dynamic splint with an outrigger that had elastics so he could close, but the elastics opened his hand.
Very cool.
So it enabled him to still function.
Okay. Are you the only one that knows how to do the splint making up there, or?
Well, and that's one of those things that I took some extra classes in college specific to splinting. So I found through years of experience that it's one of those things that you either love or you hate.
Yeah, okay.
And so Joanne, my coworker, she can make some of the more basic splints.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the dynamic splints, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it that require more training. So a lot of physics and lines of pull and tensions and things like that.
And is there like a special machine that you use, or is it just pieces that you put together?
Well, it's a flat sheet that you heat up in water.
And you
that
mend
becomes
it.
It becomes moldable.
Mold it, yeah. Interesting. Okay, great. Wow, I'm learning a lot. Good to know that you're able to do that. So another question I wanted to ask was, the different types of patients. I would imagine you also treat a lot of employees if employees have injuries also.
Correct.
So, I mean, we have over 1,000 employees here, so you probably see a lot of your colleagues there as well. So obviously, you mentioned that there is some collaboration with your PT colleagues. What other disciplines do you work with? I mean, if there's injuries, I'm sure you work with a lot of orthopedic surgeons. Your hands expertise, you probably work with a lot of Dr. Lund's patients.
Correct.
She's one of our hand surgeons.
Yes.
So tell me about like the people that you really collaborate with in order to care for the patients.
Obviously, the physician is at the forefront, because those are the people that we get the patients from.
Yeah.
As OTs, we are really part of an interdisciplinary team, as you had alluded to earlier. PT, OT, and speech are primarily under the heading of rehab services.
Okay.
We work closely with one another with a lot of the different patients that we treat.
Yeah.
We all have our own sort of niche that we're working on individually, but then collectively, our goal is to maximize the patient's function and independence.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could see, you're all up there at Northwoods in the same building, and I can see, for example, a stroke patient who might have the functioning, the day-to-day, but also some issues with, speech and swallowing after, and I know our team helps a lot with that.
Right.
So, okay, so do you only treat patients at Northwoods on the outpatient basis, or do you come here and treat some of our inpatients as well?
We do.
Okay.
I do. I see the majority of my patients, and I work 40 hours. The majority of my patients are seen at Northwoods on an outpatient setting.
Okay.
There are times where either with whether the census is high, or we do have an OT here, Alicia, who works here, but she has her day is off on Mondays. So either coming when the census is high to help out, or on a Monday when she's off.
Okay.
So, but the majority of patients are seen at Northwoods.
Okay. And now you mentioned an example of, one of your patients, the splinting, and obviously, protecting patient privacy. But if you could think back, what would be like one of your biggest patient success stories? Maybe just like a high level, how you helped that person.
The one that stands out the most is a patient that was in the station nightclub fire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I treated two.
Okay.
But the one I'm going to be speaking of he was involved in that, and he might not have made it if he didn't fall out the window. He was in the bathroom, and he turned with the smoke and fell out the window. So, but he sustained significant burns on most of his body.
Yeah.
And in that fire, I believe 100 people died, and I think there were like 230 non-life-threatening injuries.
Terrible tragedy.
But severe burns, multiple surgeries, skin grafts, and things of that nature. So when I saw him, he really couldn't open and close his hands. His elbows couldn't straighten because of the scar tissue. So after those different surgeries, come back, maximize the outcome that we could, have another surgery, come back. But through that time, we were able to develop, I saw him for probably more than 6-7 months, develop like I had alluded to before, developing a rapport with them, and then that sight component, and just visually how he looked, didn't want to go out, things like that. So now, he has full range of motion, both of his arms, he's working, he has kids, back to his life.
That's amazing. I can see why that would be one that stands out in your mind as being very impactful in your career.
Crazy. You get to know each patient so well. I was invited to his wedding. As much as I was like, no, we don't need to. We don't need to go to that. And he goes, no, you don't get to say no. You're coming. And to this day, we're still friends.
That's awesome. Wow. Obviously, you make some incredible connections, and my gosh, such a impact on people's lives. That's really incredible. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
You're welcome.
So coming up, I do want to ask you a bit more about how you've seen the field of OT change since you've been doing this for 30 plus years, and also a bit about our specific referral process. But first, because we are almost at the halfway point of today's show, we do have to take a second break, but that does not mean we are done with Oscar. We'll be right back. More with Oscar Miranda of our occupational therapy team, and talking about their services that are offered up at Northwoods Medical Center. So we hope our listeners will stay with us. We'll be right back after this short break.
We'll be back with more of Morton in the Morning in just a few moments here at WVBF.
From all of us at Morton Hospital, thank you to our community for voting for us in the 2021 Best of the Best Community Choice Awards. We're honored to have been voted Best Hospital, Best Audiologist, Best Hearing Aid Center, Best Physical Therapy, and Best Weight Loss Center in the Metro South region. Learn more about our services and quality achievements at mortonhospital.org and follow us on Facebook to stay up to date on what's happening at your award-winning community hospital.
And now back to Morton in the Morning here at WVBF, Hometown Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the second half of today's Morton in the Morning show. I'm your host, Julie, and today we are chatting with Oscar Miranda of our outpatient rehab services team. He specializes specifically in occupational therapy, along with another OT at Northwoods Medical Center right up on Bay Street, and he's been with us for 30 plus years now, and we've been learning a bit about his background, his areas of expertise, and the types of patients that he specializes in treating, which is anything from an injury to someone who may have suffered from a stroke. So there's a full team of people. Oscar works very closely with his physical therapy colleagues and the doctors who refer patients to the hospital. And they just offer a comprehensive range of physical and occupational therapy services. So you've been doing this for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So how have you seen the field of occupational therapy change since you first started? Have there been significant changes? Or
Well, and that's a tough question. I've taken a ton of students through my 32 years of experience.
Yeah.
And obviously each school, their curriculum is different, and there's a difference between OTRs like myself
Yep.
and OT assistants, which is a 2-year program.
Okay.
But I think there are more schools that offer OT and OTA degrees now
that's
than there
good.
as a major than there were back when. I mean, I graduated in 1989, so it's a
Yeah.
long time ago. I think most schools are now, I have a bachelor's degree, mandatory master's is pretty much what it is now.
Okay.
And a lot of schools, or at least some of them, are going to a doctorate program.
Okay.
So that's a big change. But I would have to say the biggest change that I've seen in the 32 years I've been practicing is probably the changes in what insurance covers.
Okay. All right.
Because we, sadly, can't provide service if the insurance doesn't
Yeah.
allow or pay for
Okay.
said service.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, like the insurance, what's covered, what's the referral process. Maybe you can sort of just highlight what that looks like.
The referral process is, so you need a physician or a doctor's order is needed to come in for an OT evaluation. It can be either faxed by the doctor's office or brought in by the patient.
Okay.
It can be a primary physician, an orthopedic physician, or any other specialist who is a doctor. The one thing I do want to mention is that we don't accept chiropractic referrals.
Okay. All right. And then with regard to the insurance, you said, does what is covered, does that really just depend on what type of insurance you have?
Correct.
Or are
Right.
you limited as to what treatments you might be able to do and what's covered? Or
And it's all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that insurance actually dictates the patient's care. It is kind of, as clinicians and people who are passionate about OT, PT, or whatever their specialty is, it stinks that insurance is someone behind a desk saying, no,
Right.
yeah.
When they don't know as much about the patient's actual condition.
And
Yeah.
I think that if they ever came in, they might go, oh, you know what? You keep treating them.
Yeah, they need this.
Because if there have been instances where insurance is, they're going to, obviously, each person has different insurance. Okay. So it is the responsibility of the patient to either reach out to a customer service representative from the insurance company or talk to someone to learn as much as they can about what their insurance offers or covers.
Okay.
But to have a person say you only get 24 visits,
Right.
and I have actually seen patients specifically a stroke, that weren't even anywhere close to plateauing. And the insurance, after appeals by the patient, by myself, benefit exception letters by me, they said no. And it's like, it's out of our hands at that point, which is unfortunate.
That's too bad. But I guess, having done it for so long, you're probably pretty familiar with these plans and can try to customize a treatment plan as best possible based on what you'll be and how much time you'll have with each patient.
Right. And you try to do that. Obviously, you give them a home exercise program, things that they're going to be doing when they're not with us, because if they're only with us for 2 to 3 times a week, and all those other hours in the course of a day, they really need to be being a team player. So we as clinicians do what we can do, but they need to hold up their end, and that's where that whole team approach between the therapist and the patient, and usually the best outcomes come with when everyone does what they're supposed to do.
Because it's probably exercises you could be doing while you're at your desk or while you're watching TV even, right?
Correct.
So I know that you obviously shared some really, great stories, but what would you say, in general, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
The most rewarding part of my job is probably when you treat someone, like I had mentioned earlier, and they're at their worst.
Yeah.
They're probably scared, they feel vulnerable, and they're often dependent on others for assistance or help. And working so closely with them to improve their condition, their range of motion, their strength, and their overall function is very rewarding. When you have a person come into the clinic and they say that they tied their shoes for the first time, they didn't need their wife to do it, and they're excited about it. Knowing I had a part in it is nothing short of gratifying.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure you get really excited too when they share those little,
because it's
even little small
things. When they say, I can't do this, I can't do that. And when they come in, I go, so how you doing today? Oh my God, I cut my food by myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know that you're helping them. So that's wonderful. So, before we wrap things up, I know you talked about a couple of your other colleagues. And how many PTs, OTs are there up at Northwoods at our team?
So at Northwoods, there's Joanne and myself.
Yep, for OTs?
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's Alicia here in the hospital.
Awesome.
Right. PTs, I think there's 3 or 4 PTs and 3 PT assistants.
Okay. And our team, I know I've mentioned this before on the radio, but our team actually just won one of the best awards up there. Actually, the speech team won a couple of awards as well, but we won for best physical therapy, best audiology, and best hearing aid center. So kudos to the whole rehab team up there at Northwoods. You guys are obviously doing tremendous work that the patients obviously agree with because they voted for you guys. So congratulations. So this has been awesome, Oscar. I've learned really a lot about what OT is. And the types of patients that you're able to care for. Is there anything else you want the community to know about what you offer?
Well, I mean, I guess in short, if anyone in the community feels, that something just doesn't feel right, or, it could be something like a tendinitis that they don't even know what's going on and they're just dealing with the pain. But to know that there are probably solutions. And one of the first steps is at least letting a physician know what's going on, and then if they don't offer OT or PT as a solution, that sometimes I've had patients say, what about OT? And then the doctor go, you know what? Sure.
It's a great option.
And we're not magicians. We can't fix or cure everybody. But you know what? If you have a referral to come see us, we can at least through the evaluation determine if there's ways we can make things easier, adapt things to try to minimize the pain, recommend some adaptive equipment or some other strategies to help improve your function so that you're not dealing with that on a day-to-day basis.
I think that's a great point that you bring up, is the importance of the patient being educated or aware about what their options are, because there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for treatment, and just knowing that these types of services are available and maybe that might be a good fit for them is really important. So well, that was great. Thank you so much. Kudos to the team up there. I know that the phone number for Northwoods outpatient rehab is 508-828-7265. Is that correct?
That is
Okay,
correct.
good. All right. I feel like a walking phone book sometimes. Okay, so thank you, Oscar. This has been really wonderful. We appreciate you
welcome.
being with
Thanks for
us.
having me.
And one thing I will add, I forgot to mention is we get a lot of patient feedback, obviously, about our teams, and your name comes up all the time in a very positive way. So we'll have to see it in our Google reviews everywhere. So
Thank you.
kudos to you. We have
Appreciate
a wonderful
it.
team up there. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Okay, well, that wraps up the interview portion of today's show. We want to again thank you to Oscar for joining us today. He shared a lot of great information about, thoroughly explaining what occupational therapy is and how it differs from physical therapy, about the different types of patients that they can treat up at our clinic. And it was really great to get to know a little bit more about Oscar and his role here at Morton Hospital. So we want to thank him for taking that time. And as we mentioned earlier, and in our outpatient rehabilitation services department up at Northwoods Medical Center on Bay Street, we have both physical therapy and occupational therapy services. As Oscar mentioned, they see patients of all ages, from kids to seniors. Also up at Northwoods, we have our Speech, Hearing, and Language Center, which, as Oscar explained, is also under the umbrella of outpatient rehabilitation services that we offer through Morton Hospital. They are all up at Northwoods Medical Center on Bay Street. And as I mentioned earlier, those two teams actually recently won some awards, the Best of the Best Community Choice Awards. So shout out to them. They won Best Physical Therapy, Best Audiologist, and Best Hearing Aid Center for the Metro South region. And that is the patients and community voting in various health and wellness categories. So super meaningful. We want to congratulate our team and thank you to our community for voting for us. So again, lots of great information. I hope that everybody enjoyed hearing about our occupational therapy services. As Oscar mentioned, you do need a referral to go see them, but you can always call and learn more. The number there again is 508-828-7265. Again, that's 508-828-7265, and that is for our outpatient rehabilitation services department up at Northwoods Medical Center. And as always, you can always find information about all of our services online on our website, which is mortonhospital.org, or also pay attention to our Facebook page. We do post a lot of news, updates, upcoming events on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Morton Hospital MA. So it is just about time for our final break of today's show. When we come back, I do have just a few hospital updates to share with you. Before we break, I just want to remind our listeners about how you can reach us here at Morton in the Morning. We have an email address set up, which is mortoninthemorning@steward.org. And that's MORTON in the morning at STEWARD.org. We check that email regularly. You're welcome to reach out to us at any time to share any feedback about how we're doing, any general questions, or any ideas that you have for any of our upcoming shows. We want to make sure that we are sharing information on topics that you want to hear about. So reach out to us and email us at mortoninthemorning@steward.org if you have any feedback or suggestions. Okay, so we're about to take our final break of today's show. Please stay with us for some additional updates on some upcoming happenings at the hospital, as well as some new doctors. We'll be right back after this short break.
We'll be back with more of Morton in the Morning in just a few moments here at WVBF.
Morton Hospital's nationally accredited Center for Weight Control has grown with the addition of Dr. Deepthi De Silva, our new Director of Medical Weight Loss Management. Our center now offers high-quality medical and surgical weight loss options close to home, with medical weight loss appointments now available in Taunton and Middleborough. To learn if you qualify for weight loss surgery or medical weight loss and to schedule a consultation, call our Center for Weight Control at 508-301-2434.
And now back to Morton in the Morning here at WVBF, Hometown Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the final segment of this week's Morton in the Morning show. Today we had a great interview with Oscar, who is a member of our occupational therapy team, and he sees patients at our Northwoods Medical Center Outpatient Rehabilitation Services Department up on Bay Street. He provided a great overview of the PT and OT services, the types of patients they treat up there. Really great to get to hear about him and some of the most impactful moments of his career. If you missed that show, don't worry, or if you missed our interview earlier, you can always hear it online. We post our shows on our Facebook page after they air. You can go to facebook.com/Morton Hospital MA, and we will have this show posted later this week, and you can find our interview with Oscar there. And as a reminder, if you wanted to reach out to our Outpatient Rehabilitation Services Department up at Northwoods for any of your PT or OT needs, you can call them at 508-828-7265. Again, that's 508-828-7265. So for the last part of today's show, just want to share some updates. So first, with regard to upcoming events, I know that we've talked a lot about some virtual hiring events that we have been having here at Morton Hospital over the past few months. We are actually planning for an in-person hiring event later this month, which will be very exciting. We're looking forward to that. We're just pinning down the dates. As soon as we have those dates, we will share that information on the show, on our Facebook page, on our website. So be sure to watch for that information for our in-person hiring event later this month. But at any time, you can also check out our career opportunities online if you visit jobs.steward.org. This week, we actually welcomed 17 new hires to Morton Hospital at our orientation on Monday. So we are thrilled to continue growing our team as our services continue to grow here at Morton Hospital. Also, a reminder about our monthly virtual weight loss info sessions and support groups. So that is combined into one session. It's the last Wednesday of every month from 3 to 4 p.m. And again, that is virtual. So once you sign up, you will get a Zoom link from our team so that you can sign on the day of the session and participate virtually in the comfort of your own home, at work, wherever you are able to join us. But that program is for anyone interested in learning more about weight loss options through our Center for Weight Control. We have both medical and surgical weight loss options available right here in Taunton. And also our new Director of Medical Weight Loss Management sees patients in Middleborough as well. And to find information about that program, you can go to our website, click on the events page, or also check out our Facebook page. We usually post all of our events to Facebook as well. And another exciting event coming up in a couple of months. In May, we usually celebrate EMS Week. So that week this year is the week of May 15th. And one of the special events that we always celebrate during that week is our EMS Stewards of the Community Awards. Now, that is something that Steward has held for the last several years, and all of the Steward hospitals celebrate the local EMS professionals in their areas and their life-saving efforts and the great work that they do in the community every year. And this award is specifically for, an EMS provider who has had an above and beyond or exceptional interaction with a patient. So we are actually now accepting nominations for our EMS Stewards of the Community Awards here at Morton Hospital. So to nominate a local EMS professional, maybe you yourself or a family member, were helped or saved by one of our local EMS professionals and you want to nominate them for this special award, you can go to our website, mortonhospital.org, and click on the news page, and that will bring you to more information about these awards and how you can nominate someone. So we look forward to that event. It's always really special to honor and celebrate our EMS partners during their special week. This month, we are also celebrating a couple of healthcare observances, and here at Morton Hospital, we actually celebrate any and every healthcare observance, whether it's a special day, a week, or a month. So this month is actually National Nutrition Month and also Social Work Month. So we want to give a shout out to our nutrition and food services team, as well as our case management team, the social workers that are on that team, and thank them for all that they do for our patients and our team here at Morton Hospital. Next week, we are also celebrating Registered Dietitian Nutritionist Day, which is next Wednesday. So, again, a double celebration for our nutritionists here at Morton Hospital, who play a very integral role when it comes to caring for our patients, both on the inpatient and outpatient setting. And then lastly, just a couple updates about new doctors here at Morton Hospital, or new doctors and providers. So we have grown our cardiology team. So our SMG New England Cardiology practice right over in the Thayer building of Morton Hospital. Many of our listeners may be familiar with Dr. George Chilazzi, who leads that practice, and he has been caring for patients in our community for many, many years now. But there's a new addition to his team, and her name is Madison Gomes. She is a nurse practitioner, and she is now accepting patients over at SMG New England Cardiology. So you can find information about Madison online on our website, mortonhospital.org, and check out our Doctor Finder page, or you can call their practice at 508-880-0077. Again, that's 508-880-0077. So we are happy to welcome Madison to our cardiology team here at Morton Hospital. This week, actually just yesterday, we also were happy to welcome a new chief hospitalist to our team. So our hospitalist team, they are the providers, both doctors and mid-level specialists who care for our patients who are in the hospital. So our admitted patients, our inpatients who need medical care and supervision. So our hospitalist team is on site here at the hospital caring for our inpatients. We have a really wonderful, talented, and caring team here at Morton Hospital, and we are so fortunate to welcome Dr. Paul Spiegel to our team as our new chief hospitalist. He's actually been within the Steward system for many years now. He comes to us from New England Sinai Hospital, where he served as the chief medical officer. And he has more than a decade of hospital leadership and administrative experience. He also served as the system medical director for Sound Physicians, which is another hospitalist management group that has hospitalist teams at many hospitals across the state, with the majority of his time focused at Good Samaritan Medical Center, which of course is our sister hospital up in Brockton. So Dr. Spiegel earned his medical degree from Brown University School of Medicine. He completed a residency in internal medicine at Beth Israel Medical Center, as well as a nephrology fellowship at Lenox Hill Hospital, and both of those are in New York, New York. And he is board certified in both internal medicine and nephrology. So we are very happy to welcome Dr. Spiegel to our team this week. Very fortunate to have him leading our hospitalist team and making sure that our hospitalized patients who are here in the hospital are receiving the best possible care and the highest level of compassion. So welcome to Dr. Spiegel, and welcome to Madison to our SMG team. So that basically wraps up our show. Before we end, just a reminder about how you can contact us here at Morton Hospital in the future. Contact our show to give any feedback or suggestions for future shows. You can email us at mortoninthemorning@steward.org. That's MORTON in the morning at STEWARD.org. And again, thank you to Oscar of our occupational therapy team for joining us today. If you missed that interview, you can find it on our Facebook page later this week, facebook.com/Morton Hospital MA, and we certainly recommend that our listeners follow that page anyway for all the latest updates at Morton Hospital. We always post our events, our providers, we always post our staff celebrations and what's happening here at Morton Hospital. So make sure you're following us online at facebook.com/Morton Hospital MA. and also our website, mortonhospital.org. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking forward to hosting an in-person hiring event here at Morton Hospital later this month. And we will certainly share that information with our community once we pin down the dates and time so that you can share that. If you yourself is looking for a new career, if you have family members or friends, we have many, many different career opportunities here, not just clinical. It's not just nurses and doctors here. We have so many ancillary areas, many support areas at the hospital. So lots of great clinical and non-clinical opportunities. So watch for that information or check out what we have available anytime online at jobs.steward.org. So again, happy March, and thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to joining you again next week. Again, we come to you every Wednesday at 11:05 a.m. right here on WVBF, your hometown radio station. Thank you so much for joining us, and from all of us at Morton Hospital, we hope you have a happy and healthy week. From all of us at Morton Hospital, thank you to our community for voting for us in the 2021 Best of the Best Community Choice Awards. We're honored to have been voted Best Hospital, Best Audiologist, Best Hearing Aid Center, Best Physical Therapy, and Best Weight Loss Center in the Metro South region. Learn more about our services and quality achievements at mortonhospital.org and follow us on Facebook to stay up to date on what's happening at your award-winning community hospital.